Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a video on my thoughts on the judoon coming back to Series 12 of Doctor Who, or returning in Series 12 of Doctor Who, which is basically of this recording anyway, the first real big sort of substantial piece of news we have got out of Series 12 of Doctor Who, which I guess in retrospect, thinking about it, makes sense, because it would have been very difficult for the BBC and all the Doctor Who team to have kept it under wraps that the judoon were going to be in Series 12, seeing as there was all those filming pictures of them being in that, or being around and or outside of said church in England and that in the down south of the country. So yeah, I mean, and I know this is quite old news now, to be fair. It was sort of news that was quite a few, maybe a month or two ago, maybe, or a month and a couple of weeks anyway, nearly almost 2 months now, by the time this gets uploaded to my YouTube channel. But yeah, I just thought I'd throw my hat in the ring, and as it were, or bring in the hat even, however you say that expression, and basically say what I think as to the judoon coming back. Yeah, because this is the judoon figure. Woo! But yeah, I don't know. I would have never really thought of them coming back, but I'm not disappointed by any means. It's just something that was never in my headspace or in my sort of on my radar, as it were. You know, I think it's a brilliant choice. I think it's a really sort of something almost from left field, but is very maybe particularly obvious if you think about it for a second or two. And that because I think Chris Chibnall has made it pretty clear that he didn't want to alienate a lot of people, new people, with Series 11, and I think maybe going forward he might want to appease more of the hardcore classic Who fans, as it were, or bigger Doctor Who fans, but also still find the balance of trying to appease us, the hardcore Doctor Who fans, and the new people who's just got on board with Series 11, and that. And so bringing back the judoon is a brilliant way of doing that, because they're old, if you've only just started with Series 11, old Doctor Who villains, but are relatively new as well, in terms of, like, it's not like something from the 60s, all the way back from the 60s, or even the 70s or 80s, you know. It's not, technically they're not proper old classic Who villains, but for people who have only just gone into Series 11, they kind of are, and that because they weren't in Series 11 or in any of Jodie Whittaker's eras. So, you know, and the last time they appeared officially, you know, in a proper substantial role was in, if I'm not mistaken, I think Sarah Jane Adventures, and then prior to that it was Smith and Jones, their introduction story. And I think it's one of the better sort of cases where we've had a sort of animal type creature be just sort of alienized and or sort of had a Doctor Who spin on it. You know, we've had cheetah people, we've had insects, we've had, you know, all manner of different sort of everyday sort of animal type creatures from the real world be translated into Doctor Who, and I think the rhinos really work well. They're basically police for hire, so and as well the picture in particular that we saw online from the BBC and the Doctor Who team release was one of where a judoon even had like a mohawk, and that, to which I'm thinking maybe he's a renegade sort of faction or offshoot this group, maybe. You know, like these ones are like almost like, you know, your old school sort of LA noir sort of cop films where the detective's always off the force but is somehow, or is still somewhat going into the slum districts and all the sort of alleyways and kind of doing stuff off the records, off the books, as it were. I think that would be a really cool sort of storyline to do. You know, like say that this group are led by a rogue almost like, as I say, judoon cop, as are all of the ones that follow him and that, and have kind of been disbanded and sort of, as I say, are an offshoot of the core judoon sort of police force that we see in, say, episodes like the beginning of Magician's Apprentice, which we last saw them in, or Smith and Jones. They've also had 2 appearances in Doctor Who Big Finish. They've had, most recently with David Tennant, the third adventures of the 10th Doctor and Donna. We've had the episode titled 1 Mile Down, as well as a Colin Baker story called Judoon in Chains. They've also been in a Doctor Who book with the 10th Doctor and Martha, so they have been in quite a few bits and pieces of expanded university stuff, so the Big Finish audios, the books, and maybe even the Titan comics, maybe, I'm not sure about that one. But yeah, they've, for the longest time, we've only ever seen them in the background as to other stories and that, and I'm hoping this is a story focused solely on the judoon. I think it would be really cool to have also maybe a sort of element of a story where maybe the 13th Doctor is, you know, has always been the optimistic, righteous type character and trying to do the right thing, but maybe the story focuses on more how the judoon and these renegade people think how what she's doing is actually wrong, to which they butt heads, you know, and there's quite a bit of conflict because they're quite a masculine, quite, you know, sort of brutish, you know, big, bulky sort of, characters and that, you know, whereas the 13th Doctor is this sort of very much more sort of caring, well, not methodical, but very much nurturing, caring, sort of unbridledly sort of optimistic sort of character. So then to be, you know, lock horns, no pun intended, with these sort of characters that are renowned for being quite brutish, quite blunt, quite stupid almost in terms of the lexicon, you know. They're also, yeah, they're sometimes referred to as guns for hire or police for hire even. So then that makes me think that they're like the new series versions of almost the Ogrons from the classic series. Although saying that, I would prefer the Ogrons to just be the sort of bounty hunter-esque species and these just be cops, really. But as I say, to add more layers to them as a species, it would be really cool to see, as I say, a renegade offshoot branch of dirty cops almost, you know, and that. But yeah, it also looks as though, yeah, like maybe the 13th Doctor is has been caught, has been captured, and that, and you know, I wouldn't go so far to say that maybe she's on trial, but maybe she's been incarcerated by them because she looks as though she's maybe about to be, as I say, you know, as I say, incarcerated or imprisoned by the judoon, which would be really interesting, you know, maybe, as I say, she thinks what she's doing is the right thing, and then maybe a cliffhanger to the first part of an episode could be her being, as I say, captured by these judoon, and that. They've also appeared in Sarah Jane Adventures, which is pretty interesting, really, because we also got kind of news about one of the actresses from Sarah Jane Adventures coming back to into Doctor Who to play a part. So very interesting there. Yeah, I think it's a really cool and really good idea because it means that you're not fully alienating people who, even if they've only just started with Series 11, you know, I'm sure they could go back to the sort of David Tennant era and see the judoon, or even maybe, you know, see the judoon in, as I say, Magician's Apprentice. I don't think it's as alienating, ideally, going back to the RTD, Russell T Davies or Moffat era, hopefully for new fans, as it would be going from, you know, Series 11 all the way back to the 1960s or 70s or 80s or whatever, and that. But yeah, I think it's been a really good pick, and yeah, it just sort of kind of came out of left field for me. So yeah, those were my thoughts about the judoon coming back in Series 12. I'm happy. I'm hoping I'll be happy if there's a substantial story to tell with them. I'll be more disappointed and annoyed if they're just a cameo, because at that point, why even say that they're coming back, other than you know, if they were just coming back as a bit of a cameo, I would hope that the BBC would be smart enough to just say that. You know how like when people were getting annoyed about the thingy, the Dalek reconnaissance, Dalek in resolution being just sort of, people were thinking, oh, that's the new design, that looks awful, and the BBC were quick to respond and say, yeah, but this is just a one-off, chill your beans sort of thing. So yeah, those were my thoughts on the Judoon coming back for Series 12 of Doctor Who. Please do feel free to comment your thoughts, about this in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, comment, rate and subscribe.